The, are you ready? The Space Subcommittee of the Committee on Science, Space, and Technology will come to order. Without objection, the Chair is authorized to declare recesses of the subcommittee at any time. I recognize myself for an opening statement. The bill and amendment before the subcommittee this morning reflect a true bipartisan agreement. I want to thank my colleague, the ranking member, Ms. Edwards, for her hard work, determination, and patience in putting together this consensus agreement with me. The ranking member and I don't always see eye to eye, but the provisions contained in the agreement are a testament that Republicans and Democrats can work together in an effective manner for the good of the nation. The agreement before us today will enable NASA to continue its proud tradition as the preeminent civilian space agency in the world. The agreement is not perfect, nor is it complete, but it is a reflection of good faith efforts on both sides to continue working together to write common sense policy. Congress has been consistent in its support for the Space Launch System, Orion Crew Capsule, Commercial Crew Program, and the James Webb Space Telescope. These priorities are clearly reflected in the agreement and represent yet another affirmation of policy already contained in federal law. The agreement before us today makes absolutely clear that NASA's goal for the human spaceflight program should be to send humans to Mars. It is also the committee's intent to be clear that proposals that cannot be proven essential to a Mars mission be removed from this portfolio. For this purpose, the agreement provides a framework for the development of an exploration roadmap, which is critical to ensure every taxpayer dollar is spent effectively and efficiently. A clear and detailed roadmap is a reasonable and necessary requirement for future development efforts at NASA. The bill seeks to limit U.S. dependence on Russia for access to low Earth orbit and the International Space Station. As the administrator said last week before this subcommittee, and again yesterday, budgets are about choices. I could not agree more. That is why this bill allows NASA to better focus its efforts on once more launching American astronauts on American rockets from American soil. The development of the deep space capabilities is of utmost importance for this subcommittee. Members on both sides of the aisle have expressed disappointment in the administration's insufficient budget request for the Space Launch System and Orion Crew Capsule. This agreement makes it clear that SLS and Orion are top priorities for Congress and the American people. Additionally, the agreement contains continued direction for the on-time and on-budget development of the James Webb Space Telescope. The completion of the James Webb Space Telescope has been a top priority, and we expect NASA will continue to treat it as such. I am proud of the good work this subcommittee has done. I'm sure my colleagues would agree that finding bipartisan agreement in an austere budget environment is never an easy task, and our work is not done. But this subcommittee is well served by an excellent negotiating partner in Ms. Edwards and a supportive full committee chairman and ranking member. I look forward to working together with my friends on the other side of the aisle to make additional changes on provisions important to Republicans and Democrats as we move this bill to the full committee and House floor. I now yield to the ranking member of the subcommittee, Ms. Edwards, for her remarks.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Today really is a good day for us in this subcommittee, and I join you in recognizing NASA is critical to this nation, to our economic strength, and to our place in the world. NASA's accomplishments in human spaceflight, space science, aeronautics research, and space technology are the envy of other nations and a source of inspiration for all our citizens. Helping NASA to maintain its leadership in all of these areas is one of the most critical responsibilities of this subcommittee. The 21st century requires a robust space agency supported by a strong, vibrant, and innovative private sector. So, Mr. Chairman, I know that is why you and I redoubled our commitment to working together over these last several weeks and months to develop a truly bipartisan NASA authorization bill. Today, we're marking up the NASA Authorization Act of 2014. And while the markup bill is introduced, did not reflect all of the ongoing work that both sides had been doing in trying to reach common ground, the bipartisan manager's amendment being introduced today is a major step forward and serves as an important example of progress that this subcommittee and the full committee can build upon. First and foremost, the manager's amendment directs NASA to develop an exploration roadmap, one that will have the agency define the specific capabilities and technologies to extend human presence to the surface of Mars, and sets the sequences of missions required to demonstrate such capabilities and technologies. The roadmap will allow NASA's technical experts to analyze the merits of potential interim destinations toward achieving the goal of sending humans to Mars. I know that different members have their own personal favorite destinations and interim missions, but this amendment puts the job of deciding the pathway forward where it squarely belongs by requiring NASA to develop an informed and realistic roadmap to get this nation to Mars. Within 180 days, just 6 months, NASA will share that roadmap with Congress and provide updates in the coming years. There are other important aspects of the manager's amendment worth mentioning. I'm pleased that the manager's amendment unequivocally states that the safety shall be the highest priority in the selection and development of commercial crew transportation services that NASA plans to use to transport U.S. astronauts to and from the International Space Station. We learned from the mistakes leading up to the Columbia disaster, and we do not want to repeat them. The amendment recognizes the importance of robust science and aeronautics research portfolios and highlights the importance of NASA's space technology program in enabling new technologies and capabilities that will make NASA's mission more reliable and affordable. In this amendment, we've also removed the prohibition against canceling covered programs without congressional action. Those covered programs are no more protected than any other NASA program, nor should they be. But this amendment will ensure that the funds appropriated for these programs will not be sitting idle, but instead, in this austere environment, as the chairman puts it, would be put to productive use in making as much progress as possible on major development programs. Mr. Chairman, I'm also pleased to be achieving this markup milestone, and I thank you and Chairman Smith for your willingness to respond to many of the concerns raised by Ranking Member Johnson and me in the process of reaching this bipartisan amendment. And while the amendment covers a sizable chunk of NASA's roles and responsibilities, it's clear that we still have more work to do in a number of important areas. I look forward to honoring our commitment and the commitments of our chairman and ranking member to bring this to finality in a bipartisan fashion through the full committee. For example, I've made no secret of my view that we need to provide authorizations of sufficient length and magnitude to meaningfully reflect the funding required to carry out all the tasks we're asking NASA to undertake. We were unable to do so for this markup, but I hope that by the time this bill has been enacted into law for this one-year authorization, we'll have begun the longer-term work to provide the funding guidance that Congress has a responsibility to render in the coming years. We also need to continue discussions on NASA's education activities, on earth science, and a range of other topics, so we can ideally include sensible provisions in these areas when we move to full committee markup. Their omission from today's markup in no way minimizes their importance. It simply reflects the need to take our time together to get them right, and for all of us to be on the same page in the same spirit in which we've engaged up to this point. In addition, Mr. Chairman, I know there are other technical improvements the staff will continue to seek to make for us in preparation for the full committee markup. I look forward to engaging members on both sides of the aisle who have ideas for strengthening the bill. I am committed to maintaining a bipartisan product that reflects the high regard we have on both sides of the aisle for the agency, its workers, and the incredible private sector partners who think about the future every day. Today, we can be proud to have achieved to reach common ground for this subcommittee markup. Mr. Chairman, let us maintain our resolve to continue working together as we have so that we can come up with an even better bill before the full committee markup. And let us continue our progress on reauthorizing NASA and getting a bill enacted into law. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Ms. Edwards. I now recognize the ranking member of the full committee, Ms. Johnson, for a statement.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman, for yielding to me. I'll be brief in my remarks. Today's subcommittee markup represents a step forward for NASA. I think we will come out of this markup with an approved NASA reauthorization, not a perfect one by any means, but definitely a better piece of legislation. It is also a step forward for our committee. Chairman Palazzo, Chairman Smith, and their staffs have worked constructively with Ranking Member Edwards and me and our staffs to try to reach an agreement on a bipartisan NASA bill, something that had always been a hallmark of this committee. It has not been easy to get to where we are today, and the committee's work on this NASA reauthorization bill is by no means done. However, I greatly appreciate the willingness of Chairman Palazzo and Chairman Smith to work with us, and I look forward to our continued collaboration so that at the end of the process, we can have a bill that we will all take pride in having enacted into law. Ranking Member Edwards has always articulated both a number of the manager's amendment strengths and some of our remaining concerns about the bill before us today. As a result, I will not spend any time restating them now. I will just close by again making the point that NASA is an important part of our nation's R&D enterprise. We need to keep it strong and vital, and I think that the manager's amendment before us today will help us achieve that goal. Thank you, and I yield back the balance of my time.
Thank you, Ms. Johnson. Pursuant to Committee Rule 2F and House Rule 11-2H4, the Chair announces that he may postpone roll call votes on matters on which the yeas and nays are ordered. Pursuant to notice, I now call up H.R. 4412, the NASA Reauthorization Act of 2014 for markup. The clerk will report the bill.
H.R. 4412, to authorize the programs of the National Aeronautics and Space Administration and for other purposes.
Without objection, the bill is considered as read. Does any member wish to be recognized on the bill?
Mr. Chairman.
Okay, I recognize Mr. Rohrbacher.
I rise in support of your authorization bill, this authorization bill, I should say ours, because I will be supporting it, and also would like to stand in solidarity with my colleagues on both sides of the aisle, and I think that this has been exemplary, and we've seen some great leadership on your part as well as from our leaders on the other side of the aisle, and I want to congratulate all of you. However, I feel compelled to put for the record my thoughts of one of the basic tenets of this authorization. I believe it is an expensive folly to tie American government's space program so closely to the goal of putting human beings on Mars. It could result in, and the odds are too great that this will result in a huge waste of very limited resources that could be spent on goals that were much more certain and much more beneficial to our people today. When one tries to cross a bridge too far, somebody's going to get soaked. And in this case, it will be the American taxpayer who will be paying dearly for unnecessary expenditures in achieving a goal, meaning landing human beings on Mars, which is more of a publicity stunt than a scientific achievement. If we are to maximize the benefits to mankind and to our citizens of space and human involvement in space, we need to prioritize and we need to be realistic. I do not find the goal of landing a human being on Mars something that will benefit our citizens or humankind at this time as much as perhaps some other goals, and then going on to Mars when other technologies have been developed that will make it less expensive and more certain. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman.
The gentleman yields back. Is there any further discussion on the bill? Is there any further discussion on the bill? Mr. Smith?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I don't know if this is an appropriate time or not, but I'd like to make a quick statement about the bill. And I appreciate everybody's attendance here, and I appreciate the fact that we are underway. Mr. Chairman, first I want to thank you for your leadership on this subcommittee and your dedication to NASA and its employees. The work you and Ranking Member Donna Edwards did to put this agreement together sets an example for how this committee can work productively towards a common goal. Also, I want to thank the Republican and Democratic staff who worked long hours to help advance this legislation. This bill continues the bipartisan direction that this committee has provided to NASA for nearly a decade, despite the administration's attempts to reorder congressional priorities. The 91-page bill before the subcommittee today provides support and guidance to the Space Launch System and Orion crew capsule, the Commercial Crew Program, the International Space Station, astrophysics, including the James Webb Space Telescope, planetary science, heliophysics, earth science, space technology, and aeronautics. At a fundamental level, space exploration, the mission of NASA, is about inspiration. The agreement reached by Chairman Palazzo and Ranking Member Edwards demonstrates what we can accomplish together. It is my hope that the bipartisanship embodied in this agreement will establish a precedent for the future. I look forward to continuing this discussion with Ranking Member Johnson, and it is my desire to move this bill through the full committee and to the House floor as soon as possible. I know we still have work to do, but this is certainly a positive step. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and I'll yield back.
Thank you, Mr. Smith, for your statement. Is there any further discussion on the bill? Hearing none, without objection, I ask unanimous consent that the bill is considered open to amendment at any point and that members proceed with amendments in the order listed on the roster so ordered. The first amendment on the roster is an amendment in the nature of a substitute offered by myself and the gentlewoman from Maryland, Ms. Edwards. The clerk shall report the amendment.
Amendment in the nature of a substitute to H.R. 4412, offered by Mr. Palazzo of Mississippi and Ms. Edwards of Maryland. Strike all after the enactment.
I ask unanimous consent to dispense with the reading without objection. So ordered. I recognize myself for 5 minutes to explain the amendment. The amendment in the nature of a substitute before us today is the result of weeks of negotiations between the minority and majority. While this amendment is not perfect, it represents a sincere effort and desire by both Republicans and Democrats to come to an agreement on the future of NASA. The amendment sets NASA on a path of landing humans on Mars with the creation of a human exploration roadmap. This roadmap is critical to the future of human exploration for the United States and ensures there is a plan and structure in place that will span several administrations and elections. The prioritization of the Space Launch System and Orion crew capsule are reaffirmed by this agreement, not just in authorized funding levels, but also in direction for their use. The NASA Authorization Act of 2010 laid out very clear guidelines and direction for the development of these systems. This agreement is intended to ensure that the administration's rhetoric is supported by reality in NASA's budgets. One of the most important near-term challenges facing our space program is access to low Earth orbit and the International Space Station. The agreement authorizes ample funding for the Commercial Crew Program in order to develop domestic access to the International Space Station. There are also oversight provisions to provide transparency in the contracts and processes used to develop these systems. This agreement represents an understanding that both our commercial crew partners and those developing SLS and Orion have a crucial role to play in ending our reliance on Russian rockets. The science title of the agreement emphasizes the importance of completing and launching the James Webb Space Telescope in 2018, which will build on the work of its Hubble predecessor while expanding our view into the universe. The agreement reaffirms Congress's commitment to the first A in NASA, the Aeronautics Research Mission Directorate. The agency has a proud history of infusing critical industry, changing technologies into the aerospace sector. This agreement directs NASA to create research and develop roadmaps for the agency's work on unmanned aerial systems, hypersonics, supersonics, and rotorcraft. The agreement also supports critical development efforts in composite materials in the Next-Gen program. In an ongoing effort to keep NASA's shrinking budgets focused to support the agency's primary missions, our amendment asks that any transfer of additional responsibilities to NASA be accompanied by additional resources. NASA is the only agency tasked with space exploration, and its budgets must reflect space exploration as a priority. Yet the President's budget request again transfers responsibility for developing instruments for climate research from NOAA to NASA, without providing additional resources to NASA to pay for such responsibilities. Finally, this committee has made multiple requests for more information on a proposed asteroid redirect mission, or ARM. These are reasonable requests, especially in light of the considerable concerns that have been expressed in the scientific community and by NASA's own advisory groups. To date, NASA has failed to provide a budget profile, program office, or schedule. This agreement continues asking NASA to provide these key details about this mission. There is still work to be done to perfect this bill. Specifically, I know the ranking member and I will continue work on refining several sections. Some provisions have been left out to allow for more time to discuss, but that does not mean we will not address them in the future. Specifically, the advanced booster competition section may need to be updated to reflect current realities at NASA. Other provisions, such as the Space Act Agreement section, may need further changes. I look forward to continuing our efforts as we move to full committee, the floor, and eventually to conference with the Senate. I want to thank Ms. Edwards, her staff, and of course the majority staff for their tireless efforts to pull together this agreement. I am proud that at the end of the day we were able to put our names on a bipartisan bill. Is there any further discussion on the amendment? I now recognize Ms. Edwards.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just want to echo your words with respect to the amendment that we've developed together in this subcommittee, both Republicans and Democrats, as a demonstration of our strong support for NASA. I do want to take just a moment to recognize all of the staff who put in many, many hours of work over these last several weeks and months. From the majority, Chris Schenck, Tom Hammond, Jared Stout, Allison Rose Senessen, and Gabriella Rannan, and your personal staff, Megan Mitchell. From the minority, Dick Oberman, Pam Whitney, Alan Lee, and my personal staff, Ann Nelson. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Ms. Edwards, for recognizing the staff that pretty much helped make this all possible. Is there any further discussion on the amendment? Hearing none, the vote occurs on the Palazzo-Edwards amendment in the nature of a substitute. All in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed say no. The ayes have it, and the amendment is agreed to. Are there any further amendments? Hearing none, and a reporting quorum being present, the question is on the bill H.R. 4412, the NASA Authorization Act of 2014 as amendment. Those in favor say aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it, and the bill as amended is agreed to. Without objection, the motion to reconsider is laid upon the table. I now recognize Ms. Edwards for a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I move that the bill H.R. 4412, the NASA Authorization Act of 2014 as amended, be favorably reported to the full Committee on Science, Space, and Technology, and the staff be authorized to make any necessary technical and conforming changes.
Without objection, so ordered. If there is no further discussion, this completes our business. This concludes the subcommittee markup. The subcommittee on space stands adjourned. Congratulations. Huh?